Steam me aboard. Energize. Energizing.
Kirk to transporter room. Report.
Listening to Transporter Room 3 with your hosts Phil Perello and Scott Calora.
Welcome back to another shiny new episode of Transporter Room 3. I'm Phil, and with me as always, Mr. Scott.
Mr. Scott, that's me.
Scott, how are we doing today, bud?
Good. We got our Blu-rays, our Next Generation Season 4 Blu-rays, so it takes some of the pain and hardship out of life.
Yeah, it does.
Staying away.
Because now I'm legally wed to them, and that's really helpful on my taxes for next year.
Did you consummate the relationship?
What am I, a farmer? The answer is yes.
Define consummate.
Define consummate. Well, let's just say No, I'm not going to say that. I will say that this box set, pretty badass.
Yeah, it's amazing how these Blu-rays can really make you go back to the show and appreciate it again. You know, a show that we know so well.
Right.
But, you know, I haven't necessarily watched a ton of episodes recently. But now these Blu-rays, between the extra features and the remastering job they did, it's just like, wow, you know, you kind of see the stuff in a whole new light in a way. They're really great. And I'm not a Blu-ray guy either. So
no, me neither. I'm not like a real horror for HD, but... Man, like I was watching Reunion, Data's Day, Final Mission, Redemption, and Best of Both Worlds Part 2. And Reunion, man, I had no idea that they had mood lighting in some scenes until watching it on HD. Like there's this cool / unmotivated purple lighting thing going on in Kalar's quarters that was like, oh, all right.
If anyone's going to have unmotivated purple lighting going on, it's going to be Kalar, right?
It's going to be Kalar. She carries that shit with her.
One thing I noticed about Kalar, and I think it was because it was in HD, I'm not sure, Susie Plaxton, who we mentioned her last week. I mean, I've always had an unhealthy fixation on Kalar, and she's up there with like Julie Newmar's Catwoman for me. But her hands are so big, like every scene she's in, she's got these huge hands. It's like, I don't know if it's some kind of a result of Klingon Earth DNA mixing or what. But like,
so she's like Lana from Archer. She's got Trichosaurus hands.
Or kind of like the creature, the kid, Riker's buddy from,
Barash.
From Future Imperfect. Doesn't he have those hands at the end?
My name is Barash.
All right, so you know what? Let's talk before we get too deep into season 4 talk, because that's what this episode's going to be all about. Let's do a quick reader mail.
Do it.
Listener mail.
And we got some Trek 3 news as well.
Yeah, that's right. Tim Anderson, our loyal listener, he wrote in, and he kind of, this sort of echoes what a lot of people wrote in to say to us about last week's podcast, where we talked about the most badass Worf moments. He pointed out a couple of things we missed. One, Worf actually was the emperor of the Klingon Empire for about 30 seconds after he kills Gowron towards the end of DS9's run.
That's true.
He gives it up to Martok, but still, that's pretty badass. And that's true. So not only did he kill Gowron, but he was the emperor for a short spell, which was awesome. And that, you know what, that kind of goes back to my thing I always used to say about Star Trek Next Generation, which was that they're all so closely associated with the most powerful people in the galaxy, right? Like Worf is always intermingling with the highest echelons of Klingon power. Deanna Troy's mom is an ambassador, right? Data's founder is like, you know, the most brilliant scientist in the history of, you know. Picard's always like knee deep in some kind of political bullshit involving like world leaders, and you know, like they all just have all these associations. The other thing that Tim pointed out was he lets Martok stab him so Martok could get his courage back after their imprisonment on the Dominion asteroid in the episode Soldiers of the Empire, which I actually didn't even remember.
That's right. He does let him on the. That's a great episode too. That's the Star Trek Klingon episode.
Is that the one when they spend the whole time on the bird of prey?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last one, which a lot of people chimed in about, was Worf's arena fighting against the Jem'Hadar in Inferno's Light, where he's just fighting like Jem'Hadar after Jem'Hadar.
Yeah, we did talk about that one, and I remember we did before we podcasted, and somehow we forgot. And
right. I was totally bombed when I was so drunk when we podcasted last week that
you were drunk on blood wine.
And Tim pointed out the least badass moment was the mud bath that Worf took with Counselor Troy's mom. So.
Yeah.
That's pretty unbadass.
That's up there. That's up there with unbadass. I would also say hanging out on the planet with all the half-naked people. Yeah.
There's not too much badass about that entire season.
Yeah, the less said about that, actually nothing said about that is the better.
Yeah. So now, what was going on in the world of Star Trek news this week?
Well, there's some rumblings from the interwebs. Apparently,
if they're to be believed, right?
Yeah. So, Badass Digest a week or two ago was like the two writers of some franchise, Captain America, I believe.
I think it was Thor and
yeah,
X-Men First Class.
Right, X-Men First Class. Right. Those guys were going to be writing with Orsi Kurtzman for Trek 3, and then it was announced this week that no, it's just Orsi Kurtzman writing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what his story was or something, but it didn't work out. And then the rumor emerged that the director of Step Up and G.I. Joe 2, John Chu, was in the running for Trek 3, to direct Trek 3, and then his camp said no one has contacted us about that, which I took as legit. Because usually they phrase it in a way that implies, no comment. That implies like, yeah, we're not officially in the running, but we kind of are. Right. But the way it read, I don't know. I just I took it as legit, and then the director of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Rupert Wyatt, emerged as like the guy on the top of the list that he's going to get the job.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm excited 0% about all of those. Into Darkness just burned me, baby.
Yeah. Well, and when you hear if it's true, and we don't know if it is, but when you hear that a guy like John Chu is being considered, it's almost like, well, this totally makes sense actually that they would go for someone like that. And you know what? John Chu, I've talked to him before. He's a super nice guy and all, but it's not the smartest level of intelligent filmmaking. It's a certain type of movie that this guy makes. That's why he made G.I. Joe 2. Right. So it's kind of in keeping with where we feel that the franchise has gone with the second movie. We'll see. I think it's still pretty early. I think a lot of this is just people trying to get scoops and where they're not necessarily there yet. But Rupert Wyatt, that would be better, I guess. But you're right. If you don't care about the movie anyway, what's the difference? Right? Yeah,
I'm just not and I saw Insurrection, and I still cared about the next movie. I saw Nemesis and still wanted to go see another film. Right. I just just don't.
You're hurt. You've been deeply hurt by Star Trek.
I've been deeply, deeply hurt. I got into I was recently on a set visit, and I got into a discussion about why I didn't like Star Trek Into Darkness, and another critic really enjoyed it. And I was like, I just didn't have any fun. And they were like, I had fun. I guess, I just really cared about the characters. And I said, see, that's why I did not have fun, because the movie made it very hard to care about the characters because they were inconsistent. Yeah. And of course, what do you mean? I went into my spiel, and I spoke in that way, passionately, intelligently about the movie, that I could see his brain hurt. And like the garage door came down at a certain point, like he just didn't, over his eyes, just the accordion metal door slammed down, and I could just tell that he just wasn't having it. Yeah. And at the end he goes, well, I didn't read it that way. I still had a fun time. I said, well, that's fine if you didn't read it that way. That doesn't mean that the text that I read isn't there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Well, we're in the minority for sure on that one. So.
Well, if the box office is any indication,
yeah,
it didn't do as well as they were predicting.
No, it didn't. As a matter of fact, I think I just read that it still hasn't. And this box office and Hollywood number stuff is always such a mystery game in a way, because no one really knows. But I read the Hollywood Reporter, I think, just said that it still hasn't broken even.
Jesus.
So, but yet they're pushing ahead on the third one. So I don't really get how that works. I don't feel like there's a ton of merchandising stuff out there for Star Trek. Specifically the Abrams Star Trek,
right?
The way there is for like Marvel or something. So,
right.
So I don't know, but I mean, I guess certainly there is stuff. So I don't know. But I guess they figure they'll make it. They still have the Blu-ray and all the rest of that to make it up for them. But I mean, at this point, the movie has pretty much run its course, and it still hasn't broken even. So, yeah, they're making the third one regardless. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's made less domestically than the first one, but it's done very well internationally.
Yeah.
And I read an article back in June on Hollywood Reporter that said that they estimated that the movie would make $75 million. Like, that would be the profit to the studio.
Okay.
It was $75 million.
Okay. Now, see, I don't know. Does that doesn't include all the merchandising and stuff, I guess, right? That the bigger conglomerate entity is going to make.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, yeah, because you have to keep them like like these armchair box office pundits who say, oh, well, it cost $200 to make or whatever, and it's made $500 million already. It's like, well, you have to take into account obviously the marketing budget that nobody knows what it is, but that's a big chunk, and then you also have to take into account the exhibitors, the theater owners. They get a cut out of every ticket. So like we're seeing like the gross, right, on what but that's not, the studio isn't getting all that money. So yeah, I don't think, who knows really, but they can't admit that their movie is a failure, and it's not a failure, but they can't admit that their movie is underperforming, or they have to push forward and hope. I think they were encouraged by those international numbers, so they'll probably push even bigger on international next time. So
I bet the budget's going to be smaller than the second one.
Yeah,
and probably. They're looking for that director that quote unquote they can boss around.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's move on to good Star Trek.
The good Star Trek, season 4 Blu-ray. Quick little review of it. Scott and I really enjoyed it. If there's something in the negative column, which there really isn't much of a negative column on these, it's that, compared to season 3 and season 2, like it's lacking that great must-have extra feature. There was the writer's room on season 3, and on season 2 it was the cast getting together.
Yeah.
And this one, it's the technical crew. Herman Zimmerman, the Okudas. Mike Okuda is just grating for me. Like, it's the luckiest nerd ever.
Come on, he's a talented guy.
I know he is a talented guy. I just feel that he's been running the same table draped over with that blue drape at a convention for the last 29 years. And that Quagmire-sized head of his, no.
Come on, man.
No, sorry.
But there is some, I think Ron Moore's audio commentaries alone make these things worth.
Oh, they're amazing.
We also checked out in our talking today about the redemption parts 1 and 2 were broken out into their own Blu-ray set as well, right? So kind of like how they did Best of Both Worlds last time when season 3 came out.
Right.
So like that, there's a feature length audio commentary from Ron Moore on that, and like his, I just think his stuff alone is worth the price of admission. It's so great to listen to him. Like,
he's just a good speaker in general, but yeah, to hear his passion for that show.
And he does this, he does his homework. Like he's always saying like, oh yeah, I went back to my files and I went back and checked, reread like the early drafts of the script for this episode.
Yeah, the early outlines and stuff, right?
Yeah, and then you get like Brannon Braga, who comes in, who was his writing partner for a long time on Star Trek. Like they did the commentary together on Reunion, I think, the Kalar episode, right?
Right.
And Braga's like, he's just, he comes off. I mean, I think part of it is he just comes off as a bit of he comes off a little bit arrogant and sort of, he's a little flippant, a little sarcastic, and a little, I don't give a shit about this all that much, which I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case, but it kind of comes across that way. But also, he doesn't seem to generally know what's going on in the episode as well as Moore. Because Moore is more, I mean, I think you get the sense with Braga that it was more just sort of a job he had 20 years ago, and he has moved on, whereas Ron Moore, he always has been sort of a fan as well as...
Right, he was a fan first.
A fan first, and so he seems to really put effort into those commentaries as well. He doesn't just show up for them, which you could very easily do, sort of like what we do for this podcast.
Right, I don't research anything. I've honestly never seen an hour of Star Trek.
So, and we were saying too, like Ron Moore... once again, he comes out with like the Roddenberry stories that just paint Roddenberry in such a bad light.
Yeah,
like what was he saying about?
He has he talks also in the documentary on the disc, and on there are two documentaries. There's one on the Redemption disc that's about 30 minutes long that is very Klingon centric, and then there's one overarching retrospective season 4. On the set proper, on the last disc. But he says on both his commentary from Reunion and in the documentary that they were against the idea of the Klingon Civil War. And they were against the idea of the episode Family.
Right.
Which I just watched yesterday, and I teared up watching it.
It's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, I forgot how good that episode was.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
It wasn't good enough. It wasn't strong enough.
It wasn't strong enough. But
this will be with you a long time, Jean-Luc. A long time. All right, old man. And by the way, why is your son 8 and you're 80? Yeah.
Picard's brother. Yeah.
It's more Picard's brother's wife, right?
Right.
How did she, what kind of like rules of God have been broken by the Federation medicine by the 24th century that a 68-year-old woman can conceive and give birth to a child? Like, it just seems as though something's wrong. The laws of nature have been broken in the 24th century. Anyway, the kid's going to burn in the fire eventually, so it's fine.
It's fine.
Listen, man, what didn't he say also that regarding the Redemption storyline, or maybe it was the Reunion storyline? I can't remember.
Reunion.
But that Roddenberry had a real problem with it because he didn't see Worf as a main character. He always saw Worf as more of a gimmick and
as touching buttons. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's we have a Klingon on the bridge and then it's just kind of a statement that we're making, but he's not the main character. And Ron Moore and the other writers are kind of like, that ship has long since sailed. We're like in the 4th season here. We've been treating this guy like a main character, for years. Like, right, like it's just interesting because it's like Roddenberry wasn't really writing the show at that point. I mean, he seemed so out of touch with where the guys who were running it on a day-to-day were, right? Like on the
a little bit, yeah. I mean, I wonder. I mean, obviously, I can't speak to what was happening there, but thankfully, you know, as Ron Moore says, like he butted heads on Family. That was like his first meeting with Roddenberry, but like he says, you know, Rick Berman and Michael Piller just told him, "Go ahead, write your show. We'll take care of it." And he doesn't know what they did, but that was the last he heard of it.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, you know, Michael Piller and Rick Berman were able to buffer that. Yeah. And give us Reunion is a great episode.
Oh yeah.
It was something I considered. I think I wasn't actively underrating it, but I just remember really liking it. And then in watching it again, it's so good.
Yeah.
But one of the best moments in Trek and TNG's run is that shot of K'Ehleyar's dying breath being spent to take her son's hand and put it on top of his father's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the only moment where they're a family is when she's dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it says so much without saying one word. And great. I'm getting misty-eyed over here. I'm like Deanna Troi every time her powers go away. I looked in the mirror, Wolf, and it wasn't me. That was Clues, everybody. That was me doing Troy from Clues. You're welcome, Internet.
Clues, another fourth season one, which I didn't rewatch yet, but
I did.
You did, right?
I did, and it's an interesting mystery. It's fun watching. They set it up well with the whole Dixon Hill thing with Picard and Guinan in the holodeck, and that people love a mystery and Picard getting to sleuth it in real time on the Enterprise. But then they go to this weird, we gotta explain it all and show you how it happened thing. Right. And they find out why Data's been lying.
Yeah.
And it stalls out of gas a bit.
Yeah, I feel like it never, and again, I haven't rewatched it, but I felt like it was one that never, ultimately didn't work for me. I mean, and in the end, it has that sort of twist, right? Which is, in the end, Data's the only one who ever even knows that this adventure happened, right?
Right, right. He's been programmed to lie.
Right, yeah. So I would like to see the version of that episode where he does a HAL 9000 because he was programmed to lie.
It just vents them all into space.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Captain.
I not to spend this whole podcast talking about Reunion, but I actually got my wife to watch that one with me.
Oh, that's right. How'd that go, Scott?
I figured that's a good one. You know, like she's never been huge on Next Generation. She's more Deep Space Nine, and I figured, well, this is a good one. And she had all these questions though, like as the episode was going along that I just couldn't answer. Like what? At the start of it, it's like, you know, what is Picard? Picard is the arbiter of succession, right? So it's like the two champions will face off in combat to decide who takes the seat as chancellor or whatever. And she's like, so what do they need? What do they need Picard for? If they're just gonna fight it out and the winner becomes the chancellor, what's Picard got to do with it at that point? Like, you know, like one will win and one won't. Like what?
You know, Scott. You know, I'm not gonna tell you what to do with your wife, man. But you live in New York. There's divorce attorneys there, right?
I was like, I don't know the answer to that, but just keep watching. But it's a really cool episode. And then there were a couple other things. She kept coming up with these like logic questions, and I was like, it's the Klingons. It doesn't matter. They're Klingons.
Well, that's when you're like, you quote Spock from Six. Logic, logic, logic.
And you know, Robert O'Reilly is who plays Gowron. That's his first appearance, and he's like a friend of our friend family, basically. So like, I think for her, just seeing who this Robert O'Reilly guy actually was, you know, was more interesting than anything, you know. So Gowron, he sent me and my son signed 8x10 glossies last year.
That's cool, man.
Because we know the we know the people who went to. We know basically we're friends with the lady who went to the prom with him in high school. That's what the connection is. But
was he like in pure Gowron form then at prom?
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
You will dance with me.
Depended on if he got lucky or not, I think, you know.
Nice.
How about Future Imperfect?
Future Imperfect, I revisited that episode. I used to love the shit out of it as a kid.
Yeah.
I was, 10 years old, 11 years old. I loved it. I love that alternate future. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Riker beams back from an away team mission 15 years in the future with no memory, and he has a son and a wife he never knew.
Yeah.
Which is, I get it.
His wife is dead.
Who's dead, and he's captain of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
A decade and a half has passed. Holy shit. And, you know, in watching it, it's a little Inception-y.
Data, I haven't remembered a year in the past 15 years or something like that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
it is Inception-y, isn't it?
It's a little Inception-y. Like, and like, with classic Trek, you know, the core of it, it's just about a kid who's orphaned. He's lost his parents, an alien kid, and he doesn't want to be alone. So he's been left in this cave that has basically scanners like the holodeck that allow him to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
It's the friendly version of the cornfield from Twilight Zone.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
And
go
ahead. No, go ahead.
I always felt like there was a slight Captain America and Bucky aspect to their relationship at the very end of the episode.
Right.
They're like slugging it out with the Romulans. But like before he's revealed to be an actual alien, the kid, they're like slugging it out with the Romulans. It's like, it's like this was back before we had the modern day Bucky, who's sort of a grown up himself, right? Like back then it was like the 12-year-old version of Bucky, you know. Well,
Riker he'd make a good Cap.
He'd have to have the girdle on, but yeah.
The girdle, nice. But no, yeah, the episode, it's just about this kid. He just wants a companion, and he's a very creative kid.
He is.
For an alien with staticky, flickering eyes and twitchy meth addict hands. When they reveal his alien form, he is so imaginative.
Well, he's got a lot of time on his hands, man. He's down on that planet for God knows how long by himself.
He needs to get a literary agent or something out of that. He should be writing hollow novels.
Well, yeah, because it's like you say, it's an Inception type thing where he's creating a world within a world, right? Like,
right.
It's the future Enterprise inside the Romulan abduction set, right? Like neither of those is real. So,
and you know, I went to Memory Alpha to read up on some of the trivia for it, and they talked about, it was kind of hard to nail that episode down because once you realize that it's all a dream, quote unquote, you run out of story real fast. And then someone hit on the idea, well, we can't just commit fully to the idea that it is a Romulan plot, right? And for an entire act, we're left believing it really is a Romulan plot.
Right.
And then they pulled the rug out from under you. We're like, no, it's not a Romulan plot. It's a kid pretending to be a Romulan plot, pretending to have Riker in the future.
With twitchy.
The twitchy alien thing. My name is Barash. It's the kid from Dream On. It's the kid from Dream On who in alien form.
If you saw your alien mother die on that planet and you were stuck there for years, you'd start smoking the blue stuff as well. So
sure, but
the Walker White blue.
But here's the thing. Why 15 years? Why not 6? Why not 5?
Well, he had to pick something, right?
He had to pick something.
Maybe 15 is far enough along that it would seem reasonable to Riker that all these changes had happened, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't know. Have you rewatched The Lost? The Deanna episode? The Lost?
No, I watched a little bit of it. There's a really funny scene where Riker's comforting her, and he's like, you'd be surprised how far a hug goes with Geordi.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
really funny.
Yeah. But it's during like this nice moment, like this emotional moment, right? But she loses her powers. Is basically what it's about, right?
She loses her powers, and the loss I confuse with the child, where she gets pregnant and loses a kid.
Right. She's always losing something, right?
She's always losing something.
She can be such a bitch in that episode, though. That's kind of why I'm mentioning it. Like she's such a bitch to Gates McFadden, to Dr. Crusher. Like, where were you when, instead of treating a flesh wound on Ensign so-and-so, well, I was losing my powers. Where were you? And like, she's totally bawling her out. It's like just really out of character for first of all, for the bridge crew to even have any kind of conflict, but also like Troy just comes across. I mean, like, I'm not sure. Maybe what's her name? Miranda Sirtis doesn't sell it well, but she comes across maybe more bitchy than tragic.
A little too whiny, yeah. And maybe like for us going there, we're like, oh, poor you.
So the thing about this set, though, is season 4 is the ultimate start. Like, it's all downhill from here, if you ask me. I mean, Star Trek Next Generation still continues to be really good, but I feel like it never is as good as season 4. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, just like looking through the episode list here, I mean, you start with the Best of Both Worlds Part 2, Family, which you mentioned, which is like one of my favorite episodes. Brothers is the one with Laura and Data and Dr. Soon, right? Which has it's a nice character episode, but it also has that great takedown where Data takes over the Enterprise single-handedly in like 2 minutes flat, which is so amazing.
Right.
I didn't rewatch Suddenly Human. Have you rewatched that one?
I watched it yesterday, and it's not terrible, but it's not great.
The kid who listens to space rock music, and Picard for some reason has to take him under his wing.
And they play space tennis.
right. For some reason, that was one that I don't know, like it didn't. I wasn't too interested in it back when
it's a little light. I love season 3. Like, season 3 has some really great episodes, but season 4 has a lot of good to great episodes in it.
But season 3 really, season 3 is strong, but it really kicks it in
with 4.
Yeah, I think, and it's consistent. It's pretty consistent all the way through to the end, right? So this is the season where you get Barclay, right? Barclay I'm sorry. I think this is Barclay's second.
This is his second appearance,
right? This is the one where he becomes the Enterprise computer, right?
Right.
Which is
that
really
episode starts off really strong, but that ending, I don't know.
Unfortunately, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner there. Might have merited it. It actually might have been better as a 2-parter, right?
Something better than ending with a giant floating man head.
Giant floating man head, which I think I might be wrong, but I think that's the same. That giant floating man head is the same actor.
Last Starfighter.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's the head guy of whatever the Rebel Alliance is.
Okay, because I was going to say I thought it was the same guy that plays Curzon Dax also.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I mean,
that would be awesome.
We'd have to look it up. Here, let me check right now. Let me do a Google search for giant head guy, Last Starfighter, Curzon, and see if anything comes up.
If you break the internet, that would be awesome.
What would you say is a low point for the season?
Night terrors.
So I have a special place in my heart for night terrors.
Eyes in the dark.
Not that part.
One moon. Circles. I have a special place for that one too. I do remember it pretty strongly.
All right, this guy, I'm wrong. He didn't play Curzon. His name is K.E. Cutter or K.E. Cuter. He played the Cytherian in the Nth Degree, the giant floating head. He later appeared in Deep Space Nine as first season episode, The Storyteller.
Ooh.
He was one of those guys down on the planet with O'Brien.
Of course he was.
And you're right, he was in The Last Starfighter.
Victory or death.
So, there you go. But he was not Curzon Dax, so I apologize profusely.
It's all right, Scott.
For that
it's
misinformation.
All right. What do you think is a weak link in season 4?
You know, I don't love Cupid. I know people like Cupid. That's the Robin Hood episode.
It's the Robin Hood episode. I must protest. I am not a merry man.
Right.
When Worf smashes Geordi's ukulele thing, that gets me. That's really funny.
Yeah. It's cute. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little overly cute for me.
Okay.
I mean, it's fun. I guess it's fun. I mean, you're in your 4th season. You got to do stuff. You got to change it up a bit. Devil's Due is maybe not the greatest episode.
I remember really liking that as a kid. I should rewatch it again. I remember really enjoying screwing around with the devil.
Okay.
On that planet. And I remember the hoax being really well done. Like when Picard, like it's all smoke and mirrors, basically. I like that. But that was a leftover, I believe, from Phase 2.
You're right. It was, yeah. It was. Which is funny that they felt the need to go back to the a script like that was so old.
Right.
Season 4 also it is hard to come up with there's nothing really awful necessarily about season 4.
No, Remember Me works and then it doesn't work at the same time. It's hard to describe. It's not a terrible episode.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, it's almost like everything is a great concept, pretty much, this season, right? And then there's just sometimes the execution. They didn't quite know how to finish things up. Remember Me is the Dr. Crusher episode where she's slowly but surely the members of the Enterprise are disappearing, right?
Right, and it's just down to her and Picard eventually, and then just down to her,
and then just down to her, and it's great up until that point, but then unfortunately. Resolving the mystery isn't as fun as what came before.
Right.
This is also the season with the drumhead, which we've talked about before.
Great episode.
With the Gene Simmons comes on to basically investigate the crew of the Enterprise for all the shit that they've done.
It's a bit of a crucible, a bit of a witch hunt.
Yeah, totally. Where was she when Captain Kirk was breaking the rules? Right.
Well, I think her father probably dealt with him. There's a drumhead in the original series. You know,
was it
Admiral Settee?
Yeah, right. So
I've taken down bigger men than you, Picard.
And you know the other thing too, and that's it. That's her. She basically has to retire in disgrace is essentially what happens, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And there are episodes that you don't, in season 4, that you don't necessarily go back to or remember. They're not as flashy, but they're still strong. Like, I mean, I almost hate to say it, but Loxana Troy has a strong episode this
Half a Life.
Half a Life with David Ogden Stiers from MASH, right? Where he's basically, it's sort of a forced suicide type deal, the alien race, right? And they have
great episode.
They have the balls to go through with it too. I mean, this is Picard's Enterprise. You don't stop people from what their culture has and what their cultural beliefs are. Like he goes through with it by his own choice. In the end, you don't actually see it happen, but I think he beams off the ship with Loxana, and he's gonna go.
He's gonna go die.
Go die. Yeah. The Mind's Eye, the Geordi.
I like that. I liked the Manchurian Candidate episode of that.
I guess it's okay. I find the whole Sela thing distracting. That you don't know it's her in that episode, but she shows up in the shadows, I think. But the Denise Crosby coming back as Tasha Yar's daughter, that just never. I don't know. That takes me out of things. I don't understand, why does she look exactly like Denise Crosby if she's her daughter? Is she supposed to be? She's just supposed to be her daughter, right?
Yeah, it's her half. I mean, it's her half Romulan, half.
Is it her identical twin daughter? Like, I don't understand. Yeah, no one has a child who looks exactly like them except has a different hairstyle. I don't understand.
That's fair. Forget it, Jake. It's season 4.
Okay. Anyway, we should probably move on because we could. I think we could probably talk all day about this.
We could. I will say, just for the sake of reviewing like the Blu-ray, the picture quality is on the level of awesomeness that season 3 set.
Yeah.
The audio is amazing, especially those opening titles, and your surrounds will get a big kick of the ship flybys and the tractor beam and phaser ricochets. Watch Final Mission. I know it's not the most bombastic of episodes, but it's really good with all that garbage barge towing stuff.
Right.
The sound stuff there is really great. Redemption, when Gowron's ship is under attack. Some really awesome sound effects there. It's really good. And while I wish there was a more engaging for me final roundup post retrospective piece on the set, it is a must own. It's really great. The commentaries are awesome. I wish there was a commentary on family. I'm kind of bummed that there isn't.
I know. You know, the other thing too is, I mean, you as a writer, that was never going to get better than that writers roundtable that they did, right?
That's true. That's true.
But
the only thing that would get better for me would be to have just Ron Moore and Brandon Braga sitting down for an hour and a half, shooting the shit on all their episodes.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Like just Charlie Rosing it between the two of them, you know?
Yeah. You know, this weekend is the big Creation Las Vegas convention.
Oh crap!
Yeah, and
I was supposed to email Jordan Hoffman about that.
Yeah, our pal Jordan Hoffman from One Trek Mind over at StarTrek.com. He's going to be there hosting a bunch of panels and stuff. So if anyone's going, go check out his stuff. We wish we were going. You should email Jordan because you're closer to Vegas than I am, so you might be able to. You still might be able to attend. Oh
man!
Yeah, it's coming. I mean, I think it's starting. Actually, I think it starts.
I thought
today.
It was next weekend.
No, I think it starts today.
Man, I feel like a
patak.
I feel like a patak. I feel like an all caps patak.
with a I'm assuming with an apostrophe mark in there somewhere.
Yeah, and the apostrophe is in all caps too.
All right, before we move on to the red shirt, just last thing, if you had to pick a favorite episode from the season, what would it be?
Oh, all right.
It's a tough question.
So by last thing, you mean Sophie's Choice? This is like pop quiz hot shot.
This is Sophie's Choice, but it's even worse than it's an even tougher choice than the actual Sophie's Choice would have been.
Right. Well, okay. Well, before yesterday, my favorite season 4 episode was Identity Crisis. No, just no. In all seriousness, my favorite season 4 episode was The Wounded. That episode has stuck with me for a long time.
So good. Captain
Maxwell hunting Cardassians, and the Enterprise has to hunt him down with O'Brien on board as a former shipmate of Captain Maxwell.
So good.
That episode, I have wanted to turn that into a movie since it came out.
Yeah.
I have acted that out with my little ships in the movie and stuff like that. Like, just expand upon that storyline, swap out some characters, make it a feature film. So up until yesterday, that was my favorite episode. And maybe it will be when I rewatch it because I haven't watched it again. But I think my favorite episode right now is Family.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's just because my lady parts are still crying after watching that. That episode, we've heard this several times. Anyone who's studied writing or film, drama is conflict. Yeah. And you try to find conflict in any scene, in every scene. That scene at the dinner table, on paper, that's a boring thing. A family having a meal.
Yeah.
Right? Everything Picard says in that is countered with some sort of put down from the brother.
Yeah.
There's such friction. It's even the son talking about the paper he wrote that his teacher thought was the best he's ever read. One of the best he's ever read on the topic of starships, got a blue ribbon for it. Even that sparks a conflict.
Yeah.
His son's success creates friction between father and uncle.
Yeah, because it's not just the conflict between the two brothers, but then it's this conflict regarding the kid, because the kid aspires to be what the uncle is, not what his father is. So resentment on that level from Javert or whatever the name is.
Robert.
Jean Valjean.
It's Robert Picard.
Did Karen watch Family with you?
No, it was just me.
Okay, so you could weep freely.
Yeah, during lunch yesterday, that was my thing, and I teared up.
Well, there's
like
so many
little girl.
There's so many good ones. I kind of am really hot for a reunion right now. I mean, Family has always been one of my possibly my all-time favorite Star Trek episode. But
it's a good pick, man.
But reunion, I don't know. There's something about reunion right now that I'm in that zone for some reason. And then they talk about too in the commentary about how there was a lot of fan reaction to the idea of killing Kalar. People were not happy with the idea of killing Kalar. I think it's, as much as it would have been great to see Kalar again, I think it's so much better that they did go with that.
That she died.
And they never brought her back. It's like
no resurrections, no holodeck recordings. Yeah, great.
No Romulan identical twin daughters. It's just because it ultimately would. I mean, I think that the events of yesterday's Enterprise are diminished by the return of Denise Crosby as Sayla, and I think that would have been the case with Kalar as well. So
that's fair.
But there's some. I mean, there's episodes we didn't even touch on here as well.
The host is also good. The one that introduces us to the Trill species.
All right. Yeah.
Very, very strong episode. I'm kind of surprised that they got away with some of the stuff they did. Not that it's risque at all, but it's implied at the end that
same-sex stuff going on.
Yeah, and then there's that episode in DS9 that pushes it further.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which is great. What's a guilty pleasure episode for you from 4 that you're not supposed to like it as much as you do, but
There were several of those, I guess. I had even forgotten that Identity Crisis was this season. I haven't gotten that far yet.
That's a good creepy man. That's a creepy episode.
See, for some reason, that's one that.
That's one that you let go by the wayside.
For some reason, it doesn't. That one does. I don't even feel is a guilty pleasure for some reason. But I need to revisit it, I guess.
Okay.
But I would say maybe Night Terrors, because that episode is not very well liked, but I have great affection for it. What about you?
I have great affection for it too, because I used to watch it all the time on WAB Channel 43, the Cleveland station. They had the syndication block, 6 o'clock. 6 and 7 o'clock was Next Gen.
Okay.
And the local sports they played 2 of them.
Okay.
And I remember Night Terrors, the host would have these little interstitials, and Night Terrors, I just remember really liking that episode and being connected to it. Night Terrors and Booby Trap are the ones I confuse sometimes.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because they're kind of sort of the same thing.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that one. I like Galaxy's Child when we see the real Dr. Leah Brahms.
Oh yeah. Which I didn't realize, but they mentioned Braga mentioned that that actress actually was up for the role of Captain Janeway.
Right?
She made it as far as a screen test, I think he said, right?
Yeah, that's something we did not mention yet. Reunion in the commentary, they talk about how someone brings up was the actress who played Kalar, was Susie up for the role of Janeway, and Brown is like, no, but the one who played Dr. Brahms was.
Yeah.
And then they went with Genevieve Bujold, the French actress, and that was a debacle.
Yeah, he literally calls it a debacle.
And the tone of his voice, it's like, oh, there's a story there.
It was Susan Gibney played Leia
Susan
Brahms.
Gibney.
Yeah. But yeah, I would love to hear more about that debacle. I don't that the debacle was the best thing that ever happened to Kate Mulgrew. I guess.
That's right.
All right, so
this is it's a great set. I think season 3 on Amazon right now just dropped to about $50.
Okay.
So grab season 3, and the money you save on season 3, put it towards season 4.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
I mean, you gotta own these things. Yeah. They're so darn good, and we want to thank our friends at the publicity place that sent us these Blu-rays, because kind of made our day.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, and I have a new wife. I was single before a week ago.
You are now betrothed to a Blu-ray set.
Yeah, people knock the mail order bride thing, but I don't know, man. This is kind of cool.
Did you take the oath? What is it? What does Kalar keep talking about? The oath?
He would have wanted... We had to take the oath.
You took the oath with the Blu-ray set.
Yeah, so do yourselves a favor, listen to this podcast, and then chase it with watching Family and have some tissues nearby. Or just laugh really hard when you think, oh, a grown man cried at this. Duh. It's a great season, and we got season 5 to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Cause and Effect in HD. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Hell yeah.
You know who would be excited for anything Star Trek if he survived season 3 of the original series?
Oh man, segue.
We take this time to remember those who have laid their lives down for Starfleet. This is the Red Shirt of the Week.
Today's Red Shirt of the Week comes to us from the original series and is sponsored by K.O. Pectate. Sorry, my voice for some reason sounded like the announcer during Price is Right when they're going over the prizes they're going to win, the shitty prizes they're going to win.
Yeah.
If they win the main game, like it's the price swap game, and there's new industrial strength Bengay for all the things you need to fix or whatever it is.
Speaking of which, not to go stray too far, but there's this clip that was brought to my attention yesterday on YouTube of Shatner in this terrible wig on this terrible game show from the 70s, and it's just I don't know, it's just so awful and gut-wrenching to watch this thing. And Shatner's like so clearly like hates the host of this terrible game show that he's stuck acting on, but it's sort of between, like, it's in that early 70s period where times were tough for Shatner. And I gotta remember, I want to post this on our Facebook page. You guys need to look at this. It's just gut-wrenching.
I want to see this.
Yeah, I'll find it and I'll post it for you guys. But anyway, back to our red shirt.
Back to our red shirt. Another fine fallen crew member from the original series, Crewman Compton. A red shirt from the season 3 episode Week of an Eye.
Oh.
He died. This is kind of messed up, but kind of cool. A really cool idea. He died of rapid cellular decay when he suffered a small injury, a cut.
Oh, yeah.
During the hyper-accelerated state that the crew of the Enterprise was being submitted to.
Right. That's when, like, the aliens are buzzing around the ship, like, basically like bumblebees, right? Or like flies.
Yes, I believe so.
Right.
You know what, man? I've only seen this episode once, and that was when I got the Columbia House VHS tapes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you need to go back to that one. It's a good one.
Is it a good one? It's season 3, man. I don't remember a lot from season 3. I remember actively tuning out in season 3 because I was thinking, Kirk looks chubbier. This is not what I like. It looks not good. I
guess I need to rewatch it. I remember enjoying it, maybe because it's just so high concept. I like the concept behind it. But yeah, is it ultimately a good episode? I'm not sure. I guess we should revisit it and talk about it on the podcast. But that's a great retro.
That's the one. That's the one where that's the episode where Kirk takes off his boots, right?
I think it is. And
he shoots his phaser at some girl's head. The girl he banged, right?
Yeah, maybe, but the phaser's moving super slow because of the time distortion or whatever. So,
right.
Something like that. Well, listen, I mean, this is what Kirk does. You know, what's your point?
He shoots chicks.
So, but that's a great red shirt because what happens? He's injured, but it's like a flesh wound, right? But like Kirk, he bumps into Compton in engineering, who has been accelerating. Right.
Because he has a little flesh wound. And then Kirk later awakes after being subdued in that room. And he sees Compton is knocked out and he's having severe cellular damage and he rapidly ages and dies.
Right.
And Kirk exclaims, "He was so young." And then after that, Kirk bangs the chick.
And shoots a phaser at her head.
I think so. That is... Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is the episode where he takes off the boots, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but I think what it is after the commercial break, he's putting his boots back on. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
Right? So the implication is that he had just had carnal knowledge with the of the time shifting chick. And I guess that was that was kind of as close as Kirk could get to actually. For them to actually portray Kirk getting lucky, essentially. Right.
And then there's this cool exchange, Scott. I don't know if you remember, but where Deela is the woman that he's hooking up with. You're married to your career, and you never look at another woman. And Kirk's response, "Well, if she's pretty enough, I'll look."
Does he actually say that?
Yes, he does.
All right, so this is... Yeah, I guess this is a season 3 episode for sure because it's everything sounds a little off. Actually,
it's like they just gave up.
Yeah, that's a little much. She was a Skolosian, right? That was the alien.
A Skolosian, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that'll pretty much do it for us this week, right?
Yes, thank you for joining us for the season 4 Blu-ray review. Apologies for it being a little late. But we wanted to make it worth your time.
Yeah. My Blu-rays were delayed in being delivered. That's why we didn't get it up as soon as we had hoped.
You see, they got lost in that wormhole from the episode Clues. And then Troy, speaking like this, because she's possessed by the energy green thing from Clues, was like, "Scott... I lost it. I can't do it anymore."
You should just go set up a table next to Michael Kuda's blue sheeted table right now.
Yeah, maybe we should edit that part out.
No way, I'm leaving it.
Okay.
All right, man. Well, thank you.
And thank you for listening, and we'll see you all on Gravette Island.